and I would like to introduce Benjamin Simon, who is working as the professor in the Ecumenical Institute of Posey with the World Council of Churches. And he would also say a bit more about him. And over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you also on this day. And we are a group over here, but all over the world, young people are meeting today. It's my pleasure also to introduce my dear colleague, Panika Visvazi. She's a secretary for youth with the Lutheran World Federation, and since 1 year.
Thank you. Today is the International Youth Day. Are we all feeling young today? I just hear still, of course, yes. We would like to thank you for joining us today in celebrating the gifts, addressing the common concerns and challenges of the young people, and promoting a shared understanding for the inclusion of young people at all levels. Today, with this collaborative event, the youth offices of the Lutheran World Federation, World Council of Churches, and World Student Christian Federation would like to join the global process of recognizing the efforts of young people towards the global society. Young people are the radiant fruit of God's garden and the vibrant agents of change and carriers of justice and peace. As a young person myself, I believe being and belonging, active participation and decision-making, having a voice and speaking out, receiving and contributing, growing and building, intergenerational sharing and sustainability, mutual transfer of knowledge, respect, and trust are the overall components of being young today in this present world. Young people today are amazingly adept and profoundly connected to each other and already effectively contributing towards the revival of our churches and communities. This generation has also challenged some of our traditional practices, values, priorities, and political views. According to the United Nations, today, the world has the largest population of young people, nearly 1.8 billion. Isn't the world more younger today? As we all envision a future of justice and peace, the inclusion of young people at all levels is necessary in achieving our mission, our vision of our churches, organizations, and communities. Our present structures need the involvement and contribution of young people towards a just, peaceful, and reconciled world. Being young today is rewarding as well as challenging. The young people today face many different challenges in different contexts. In some parts of the world, young people often face the challenge of integrating themselves into the adult-led structures and systems. Often, their talents are overlooked and undervalued. Often, there exists an uneven level of awareness, a need and pressure of having an extra range of skills in this adult-led society. They lack capacities and also lack resources in this global framework. Today, thousands of young people do not have an access to education, do not have a stable housing, do not have the money for their day-to-day living, do not have the money to go to their respective classes for education, do not have or are unable to adapt to the climate crisis, to the droughts and floods in many parts of the world because of lack of awareness. Young women today are facing the gender-based inequalities in many parts of the world. Nearly half of the young population today is facing the unemployment crisis. These are the reality of young people. These are some of the reality out of many others of the young people around the world. Education serves as a medium for challenging the global challenges and addressing these challenges. Change in the educational system can help us eradicate the problems of our mankind, especially the young people, to detach themselves from the grip of poverty. Often the right to participate and fully gain employment is questioned by the lack of experience of a young person. Some of us believe the phrase that wisdom comes with age alone, but some of us will definitely agree when I say that wisdom comes with providing opportunities, experience, and ability to learn. This year, the United Nations theme for International Youth Day is Transforming Education, which highlights the efforts to make education more accessible and inclusive for all. Transforming education is a means of transforming our communities, an approach of changing the pre-existing and standardized system of teaching and learning to non-formal and informal education is highly necessary, which should be more informative by providing opportunities, spaces, structures to learn about issues of climate justice, issues of gender justice, peace building, participation in the social, economic, and political structures, etc. These all must be included in our respective curriculum and our working areas. To all the elders here and out there who are watching us, I would like to call for your continued support in listening to young people by including them and providing safe spaces and structures to all the young people in your working areas. And to all the young people here and who are watching us out, I would like us to continue to learn and speak out and contribute towards the global society. Let us continue our dedication and commitments towards prioritizing the lives of the young people and ensuring the right to quality education of this generation and the generations to come. One generation alone cannot create a better world for all. Let us all come together and include all generations in our respective spaces and structures and make an inclusive, accessible system towards a one better world for all. Thank you for your patience in listening to this. With these words, I would like to greet you all a happy and meaningful International Youth Day. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Pranita, for your profound reflections. It is now my great joy to introduce 4 different speakers which have brought a word of welcome. One of them is present, 3 of them are somewhere in the world. First of all, it is my joy and pleasure to welcome the Deputy General Secretary of the World Council of Churches, Professor Dr. Isabel. She is a layperson from the Presbyterian Church of Malawi. She was teaching for many years at different universities in Malawi, Namibia, and the Republic of South Africa. And here at the World Council of Churches, she is in charge of public witness and diaconia. She is in charge of the pilgrimage for justice and peace, questions about human sexuality, and the just community of women and men. It's a great joy to welcome you to say a few words of greetings.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. It is with heartfelt sincerity and even a certain urgency that I greet you today in the name of the Global Fellowship of Christians in the World Council of Churches. On this 19th celebration of International Youth Day, I also greet those of you gathered in Seoul, Republic of Korea, where our Eco Commission is meeting. Urgency, for we know that your gathering takes place in a time of increased international tensions, looming climate deadlines, increasing disparities of income and wealth, and great rents in the social fabric of our society. Further, none of these issues bypasses the more than 1 billion people in the world who are youth. That is, those between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. In fact, the world's greatest challenges, whether of health, say for example reproductive health or HIV/AIDS, and issues of access to education, jobs, racial and ethnic conflict, migration and trafficking and slavery. All these great world issues are most keenly youth issues. Is this the world we bequeath to you? What are you to do in these circumstances, and what can you hope for? I believe it is still possible to hope in the midst of all these calamities. Among the reasons for hope, I lift up 3 to you. First, individual Christians, and particularly Christians united in committed, loving service, have often provided the creative minority that reframes and rethinks, then re-envisions and redeems desperate situations. I'm thinking of the early Christian witness to pacifism and against slavery in the Roman Empire. I remind you of the personal witness of the young St. Francis and his poverty-embracing followers, a stark countersign over against a church that had in some ways lost sight of the gospel. I still marvel at the Christian conviction and astonishing personal courage of the young Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King as they defied racist and unjust laws and forged a powerful movement for civil rights. And beyond Christian boundaries, I think of Nadia Murad, whose personal suffering led to hold public witness to the torments of Yazidi women under the Islamic State, and to her helping women and children victimized by genocide, mass atrocities, and human trafficking to heal and rebuild their lives and communities. Second, I cite the remarkable characteristics of young generation born around the turn of the millennium. It is not just that you are more diverse, more tech-savvy, more metropolitan, or better educated than generations before you. It is rather that this generation seems to prize cooperation over competition, inclusion over exclusion, community engagement over individual passivity, and making a contribution over the narrow ambitions of making a career. The power of today's youth holds enormous potential for good. Indeed, it was youth, through the contributions of Young Women Christian Association, Young Men's Christian Association, the World Student Christian Fellowship, and the Student Christian Movement, who provided much of the impetus and leadership in the first days of the ecumenical movement. And third, I cite the transformative power of love. I see it in our own fellowship. It fuels the ongoing renewal of Christian churches, that is the ecumenical movement. But we witness it most profoundly in the personal and message and love of Jesus. As he proclaimed, God's love envelops us and God's reign of justice is at hand. Grounded in devotion to life and the God of life, love fills the deep wells of hope in us. Our ability, your ability, to give yourselves completely in a cause that is just, to let yourselves be challenged by emphasizing with the experiences and sufferings of others, to discover new ways of living by crossing the boundaries of race and ethnicity, gender expectations, nationality, or even religious bigotry, gives us all reason to hope. Jesus' rising to new life reassures us that love will triumph even over death, and a new world is possible. Nurturing personal change through love is the deepest, most transformative form of education, since it entails continual intellectual, moral, and religious metanoia or conversion. It is also, therefore, the root and catalyst of social change. We know that God is active in us, working in us to rescue and redeem the times and seed the future. If we will but attend to, accept, and collaborate with God's life-giving spirit. I do not want to seem sanguine or naive or to paper over the depth and scale of the world's perils, but I firmly believe that our situation, the world's situation, and yours can be met by faith active in love, giving oneself over to the demands of our times, to the needs of our neighbors, and to the imperatives of justice. It is also simple as difficult as that. I believe that your generation has the courage and heart to embrace and engage that ultimate test, the test of love. We look to the youth movements all over the world to provide leadership in the ecumenical movement and the international bodies, and to contribute to solving the current global problems. In so many ways, then, you are our hope. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Isabel, for the encouraging words. It is now my great joy to welcome the General Secretary of the Lutheran World Federation, Dr. Martin Junge, Reverend Dr. Martin Junge, via video message.
I greet you warmly on the occasion of the International Youth Day. I'm grateful and happy that this day is marked because youth and young people are important. For us in the Lutheran World Federation, we have developed a commitment towards youth. For instance, since 1984, having a firm quota of youth participation in our governing structures. 20% of our council has to be below 30 years. And we have been observing that, and we have been blessed by doing so. Because by having young people participating in the process of deliberation, of discernment, and of decision-making has made us rich. Youth participation has been also transforming us. As you are engaging on the question or on the subject of transformative education, I want to say that youth has educated us, for instance, on the question of climate justice, helping us to understand the urgency of the climate crisis and how we need to engage in that urgency, responding adequately to the threat that is over us, but with a sense of hope, because of us being people of faith, therefore always having hope. It was youth in the council that helped us to understand that the Lutheran World Federation should not be investing in fossil fuels. So that led us in the year 2015 to take those decisions and to make them a policy in our work. On the topic or the subject of education, I'm very grateful and glad that you are taking it up, because education is and continues to be and has always been a key tool in view of participation in society. I'm grateful for that reflection. Education is not a good to be traded. Education is not for sale. Education is a right, and it has to serve the common good. And in doing so, it has to be accessible and inclusive to all. Many greetings on the Day of the Youth. God bless you. God gives you strength. God gives you encouragement as you serve and live in your own contexts and participate in the life of the church and in the life of society. May God bless you.
A third message, also via video, comes from Mrs. Necta Montes. She is the General Secretary of the World Student Christian Federation. The World Students Christian Federation is the oldest international student organization. It was founded in 1895. And today, WSCF connects more than 2 million people all over the world, or members, has more than 2 million members all over the world in over 90 countries. Welcome.
I am Necta Montes, General Secretary of the World Student Christian Federation. Good morning, magandang umaga po, and mabuhay from the Philippines. On behalf of WSCF, it is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome and greetings to all of you today, the International Youth Day. Together with the World Council of Churches and the Lutheran World Federation, we join you in promoting youth involvement and engagement in the life of our churches, the ecumenical movement, and our communities. As we gather today to celebrate the International Youth Day, millions of youth and students are leading actions for change. The students are leading the struggle for democracy in Hong Kong, the fight against gun violence in the US, the commercialization of education in Brazil, respect for human rights in the Philippines, and of course, the climate strikes every Friday led by young people in almost every country now in the world. The youth are taking actions to speak truth to power, to confront and make our governments and institutions accountable to the people and to Mother Earth. They have chosen to use the parliament of the streets to voice out their opinions, free from the controls of the systems and structures that they seek to change. Let us listen to them. A very inspiring young girl named Greta reminded us that our education system should stop serving market interests today. She asked, "Why should we go to school if there is no guarantee that our planet will survive in the future? What is the point of education?" Transforming education should therefore lead us to create conditions that would sustain life now and in the future. An education that enables our youth to reach their potential, enjoy their contribution to the overall development of their countries, their people, and the planet. Like the prophet Jeremiah, the voice of the youth will continue to find ways to be at the forefront of our concerns and agenda in our churches and the ecumenical movement. This day, the International Youth Day, let us listen, engage, and act together with our young people. Thank you for joining this event. May you have fruitful discussions and sharing in today's activity. Maraming salamat po.
And as fourth and last speaker, also via video message, it's my pleasure to welcome Joy Eva Bohol. She is a missionary with the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church, assigned as Program Executive for Youth Assignment here at the World Council of Churches. Right now, she is with the ECOS Commission in South Korea.
So greetings of solidarity to us all here in Seoul and to you in Geneva. The World Council of Churches Youth Engagement in the Ecumenical Movement and its ECOS Youth Commission first would like to thank the Ecumenical Youth Network or Youth Council in Korea through the leadership of Reverend Nam Kip-yong for observing this day with us as we walk in solidarity with each other. We thank you for inviting the World Council of Churches to participate in the Youth Pilgrimage of Justice and Peace in the Korean Peninsula. And we hope to continue to walk with you in this pilgrimage. I tried to grasp what we missed in the previous days through listening to some reflections from some of you. I quote, "In school, the Nogonri massacre was almost never mentioned in textbooks. I remember that there was only one sentence allocated to it in our history book," end of quote. Another shared, "It was my first time to visit the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. I was surprised to know that there are so many facts and information that we were not taught in school," end of quote. "I didn't know that the situation in the Philippines is much more complicated than I thought," end of quote. The United Nations since 2000 has declared August 12 as the International Youth Day. The 2019 theme is focused on transforming education, and it states that inclusive and accessible education is crucial to achieving sustainable development and can play a role in the prevention of conflict. The reflections and stories I heard these past 2 days led me back to the theme, which is transforming education. We need to continue to challenge educational systems that discredit historical facts from the ground and discredit stories from the victims and the oppressed. There is so much to be done in addressing curriculum in our schools and universities to retell his and her story that represent real people with real experience, like those that we've heard these past days in this pilgrimage. Today, the World Council of Churches and the Lutheran World Federation, in partnership with the World Student Christian Federation, is observing the Ecumenical International Youth Day in Geneva and several places in the world, including here in Seoul. This is to promote a shared understanding for the inclusion, celebrating the gifts and addressing the common concerns and challenges of young people around the world. And we encourage our member churches, our networks, like the Ecumenical Youth Council in Korea, National Council of Churches in Korea, to observe this day with us. The call to action is clear. I've heard it from Mr. Yang, our very passionate tour guide at the DMZ, and the call to action is inviting and continually inviting young people to own these stories. In the pilgrimage, we have to actually own these stories and continue to carry them over, and not only to keep it to ourselves, but we have to continue and to carry them to the fight for justice and peace. So it is a very big role that we have, that as we leave this place, we really have to share the stories in a bigger network and to continue the solidarity work around the world, so that these stories will not be left here, but the stories will be addressed by everyone around the world, and the pressure will be there to really achieve the peace and justice that we pray and we work for. So from Seoul to Geneva, Happy International Youth Day!
Moving forward to the next agenda of today. The event today is deliberately designed to be small scale to encourage critical discussions and developmental conversation and intentional intergenerational dialogue among us, the participants here. Because as we heard from the last greetings, that we have to listen to young people. So we encourage you all to stay here from the beginning until the end for a favorable setting of our conversations, because we have designed it in a way to bring a perfect outcome until the end. It is also to provoke reflective and analytical thought basing on your experiences in different localities and settings. We all have been working in different issues in our working areas and also in our structures of churches, organizations, schools, and institutions. We will have today 5 speakers who will speak on different issues of different contexts and give us some of the challenges which we should work in our respective fields. Therefore, we invite you to listen carefully and be mindful to the short presentations, and the group discussions will have reflections later with these sub-themes which the young people will be presenting. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Aziz Sadiq to speak on youth, on migration and refugee crisis. I would also like to welcome you and introduce a little bit and say a little bit more about yourself.
Good morning. Is that the problem on your phone? My name is Aziz. I am 23 years old. I am from Iraq, of the region in Geneva. I've been a refugee politic in France since 2014. I think I'm a good example for speak about the refugees and migrants and about the education. The education is important because it gives us new meaning to our life. And after losing everything in our country, you learn a new culture, new language, new friends, and be more connected with this world. The problem about education for the migrants is not how has access to education, because today everyone has almost the right of education. The problem is how you will fight against the people they are training to provoke you and who do not believe in you. For me, it was not easy at first, because public school were refused me. Afterwards, in private school, teacher did not trust that we can make it. So what we need is kind words and smile and love. Some people show us he's with us. There was a teacher that a lot with us. They did not give up at every step, and he began to help me at the beginning, and he teach me how I can speak French and etc. Sorry. He helped me to speak French language. She told me to write my testimony or my experience. I told myself that it was for what and to would write it and who are going to listen it or to read it. After I understand, when I write my experience, I write what I feel, what is my emotion, and I'm going to share with you experience, and it's a true experience. My mother, she was not good at first in France, and it was all the time cry and sick, because she want to back in Iraq, because her mother is there, her family is there, and she decided to go to the prefecture to tell them that she want to go back to Iraq because her mother is very sick. The prefecture did not give an answer, and my mother, she returned to Iraq. And when she came back, she was a new person. He began to start to learn the French language and to integrate into the French society. And it was wonderful for us because I'm happy to see my mother happy. Except someday, My mother received a prefecture letter said, "You will be removed from your civil protection of politic refugee. Send us in detail why you want back to to study your situation." Here, the problem is there is opportunity to education for refugees, but the problem is the person he don't see what you need, your emotional, your what you love, what you want, because everyone he can go to the school and he can pay and he can be studying here in France or in all the country, but they don't see our side, humanity side. Yes, I saw the death because I forget to say that I am a victim of war and victim of ISIS, and for that I am in France. Yes, I say death in front of my eyes, but today I am in front of you. Human loves life, and I forgive those who hurt me and who want my death and the death of my people. I remember every day, every morning I wake up, I repeat 3 points. Jesus died for me. What can I do for him? Nothing is impossible. And live the present moment fully. Today, I have my baccalaureate degree in France, and I am in the university as well. And I am here, young as you, to tell you we have the energy and the church have the ways. So all together we can make change in our planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aziz, for sharing us your experience and reminding us the love. Reminding us the love which our churches and communities hold for each other. Now we would hear a video message, a video presentation from Ms. Jennifer Mutoki from Kenya, who will speak on youth on radical extremism.
Happy International Youth Day. My name is Jennifer Mutoki Muto from Kenya. I'm an international relations and diplomacy with information technology graduate from Maseno University, a member of Student Christian Movement of Kenya, and an intern coordinator and program assistant at WSCF. I'm glad to take part in commemorating International Youth Day today and reflecting on radical extremism in the context of Kenya. Radical extremism is widely understood as a process in which individuals go against set norms and standards in pursuit of their own interests and ideologies that is basically displayed in their behavior and thinking. The key challenges that lead to radicalization and extremism in Kenya include reaction to perceived collective punishment by the government due to misguided notions. For instance, people from the Somali ethnic community in Kenya are collectively viewed as members of Al-Shabaab extremists, which is basically not the case always. Another key reason why young people join the radical groups is because of quest for status and sense of belonging. Most of those who join radical groups are viewed as a success, and the process is viewed as a promotion to certain status by their peers in the community at large. Studies show that there are some women who encourage their young men to man up and join such groups. Family structures, on the other end, are slowly deteriorating, and majority of the young people are in quest for identity and a sense of belonging. Poverty and unemployment is also a key factor. Approximately 70% of young people who graduate in Kenya remain unemployed despite their academic achievements. Radical extremist organizations offer a solution to financial and economic constraints that are affecting the young people. They easily lure them with the promise of better livelihood and rewarding lifestyle. Religious messaging is also another key factor. Religious leaders use such platforms to advance extreme messages that end up radicalizing the young people. There's also the issue of coercion. In some areas in Kenya, radical extremists threaten the young people to decoy them to join such organizations. As a result, young people end up subscribing to radical extremist influence and begin the radicalization process. As a result, cases of radical extremists have been witnessed in Kenya. For instance, Westgate Mall attack that left 67 people dead, and one of the deadliest attacks at Garissa University College that left 148 people dead. May their souls rest in peace. My call for action. My first reflective instinct on this matter is that youths should not be perceived as victims and perpetrators only, but also as partners for constructive change. The internet has been an instrumental tool in furthering the interest of extremists. It should also be fundamental in investing in knowledge and tools that strike critical thinking and offer skills to shielding the young people from radicalization, since they will always stumble on radical propaganda more often than not. The elite youth pursuing academics in different fields need to be encouraged and motivated to provide positive online counter-narratives, acknowledging online negatively charged messages, and advocate for instrumental, interreligious, and intercultural dialogue, promoting resilience to radical extremism. To all young mothers and young women, it is important to build the self-esteem of children and teach them the tenets of peace. Promoting inclusive policies would be a stepping stone towards countering radical extremism. Lastly, young people are the majority recruits to this organization. However, it takes brave young people to step up against all odds, initiate initiatives that promote positive ideologies within our communities. So to all young people, let's all be brave. Asante sana.
From radical extremism, we will move to gender justice. We will listen to a presentation of Miss Islam Khadija from the United States. She is a part of the LWF Global Young Reformers Network, and she will speak on gender justice.
Hello everyone, and happy International Youth Day. My name is Khadija Islam. I am a young reformer of the Lutheran World Federation Global Young Reformers Network, and I thank you all for the invitation to speak with you today. Along with my position at the LWF, I have also worked both in the United States and in Rwanda with organizations that promote gender justice, an issue that is close to my heart and one that I hope to discuss with you all today. Gender justice is defined in the LWF's gender justice policy as equality and balanced power relations between all genders and the elimination of the institutional, cultural, and interpersonal systems of privilege and oppression that sustain discrimination. Though this is a very elegant statement, it serves as only the first step in the work of creating a world free of gender discrimination. So let's take the next step and look at how gender discrimination shakes out on a global level. According to Oxfam International, women make up less than 24% of lawmakers and parliamentarians in the world, make up 2/3 of the world's illiterate adult population, and 153 countries still have laws discriminating against women. The Global Goals for Sustainable Development also highlight gender justice as goal number 5, and include representation in leadership and freeing women and girls from exploitation as part of their sub-goals. So, what does this have to do with all of us? Well, first of all, activists for gender justice have the radical audacity to envision a world where the gender balance impacts all aspects of social change. In this way, youth and young adults of all genders have the energy and commitment required to take on this fight. Direct action areas include understanding and voicing opposition to crises such as child brides, sex trafficking of minors, and genital mutilation of all kinds. Empowering women and girls can also help to tackle global poverty, as economies become stronger when women are full participants, something that I saw firsthand while working with the Young Women's Christian Association in Rwanda. The YWCA, as a global organization, works for the empowerment of women and girls. The YWCA Rwanda does this not only by creating opportunities for women to learn about reproductive rights and have access to job trainings, but also by employing many young professional women to oversee the implementation of these and many other projects. Achieving gender balance in the global political sphere has the potential to bring about real action and change in areas of reproductive rights, response to gender-based violence, and even aspects of climate change. And men aren't excused from this work either. Men have had the power to direct the narrative for most of history, and empowered men work in solidarity to show that when women and girls are full participants in society, we are all better for it. Men are also strategically positioned to reflect on the toxic stereotypes surrounding their own masculinities that have helped to build these barriers in the first place. Corita Kent, women's rights activist and American Roman Catholic sister, said, "Women's liberation is the liberation of the feminine in the man and the masculine in the woman. In other words, gender justice allows us all to have a more holistic engagement with ourselves and the world around us." So here is my call to all of you. This work is both external and internal. While we dismantle oppressive structures in our pursuits of a better world, we also have to work on dismantling and redefining what our roles will become in that world. Have the radical audacity to define what it means to be equal partners in shaping the societies that we come from. Don't hesitate to go after the glass ceiling and take the whole house down with it. Know that there is no small act when it comes to this work. Whether you're setting up microloans for women-run businesses in developing nations or pursuing a job in the male-dominated STEM fields, every little bit brings us closer to the end of gender bias for everyone. And I leave you with this reminder: there must be room for everyone in any work towards equality. Best of luck, and thank you so much.
This was a message from the United States, so let us now go to Colombia, listening to Ms. Camila Ulao, who will speak on youth on higher education.
My name is Maria Camila Ulloa. I'm 22 years old. I'm Colombian. I'm from Bogota, but I'm now living in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I took the decision in 2015 because I finished my school and I decided to come here to the south because in Colombia it's very difficult to study what I choose. The challenges for young people in Latin America are very, very hard because it's a regional problem. The inequities we have to enter to higher education. Poor people doesn't have the opportunities to even go to to go to university. Middle classes have to pay for years and years the debt they had to arrange with the bank. There are a few cases in Latin America, such as Argentina and Uruguay, because they have a different system, but poor people, even in those countries, doesn't have the opportunity to go to universities. So the challenges are very, very, very big. We have to continue asking governments for more finance resources for public education. We are also going through a process of precarization of jobs for young people in Latin America. So we have a lot of challenges, not even challenges linked to higher education, but also problems linked to jobs. I'm not very optimistic, but I have hope, hoping the students that are marching in Colombia, in Mexico, in Chile, in Argentina, in Brazil, for asking their right to have public universities, public schools. We have to continue struggling for our rights, our right to have and to go to a public university, mostly for the most vulnerable people in our region, and we have to do it together. I'm sure we will make some changes if we continue struggling, not only in our countries, but if we make a universal call for our right to get higher education.
Out of the many challenges of the young people today, climate crisis is also a challenge of today's world, where every humankind is facing the disasters and impacts of climate change. Let us listen how is it in South Africa. Let us listen to Kulekani Magwaza. He is the Young Council member of the Lutheran World Federation and a member of the Working Group of Climate Justice.
Hello everyone, this is Kulekani Magwaza from South Africa, and I'm a volunteer in my church, which is ELCSA, and I'm a council member in the Lutheran World Federation. Thank you for listening to me. I want to talk to you about the climate crisis, which is the reality of climate change. The issue of climate change is something that I personally describe as a political and ethical issue. And I'm saying that because I think we have enough of climate science that informs us about what climate change is, that tells us about what possible solutions thereof could be. But we don't have enough ambitions to put those solutions into action. And as a result, the impact of climate change, they are becoming more and more dangerous for our environment, for our people, and for this planet Earth. So that is the climate crisis. How does it relate or links to the topic of transforming education? One of the elements of transforming education is inclusiveness. And what climate crisis does is that it creates imbalances between the people and between the communities. How so? South Africa can be an example. There was a time where Cape Town, one of the biggest cities in South Africa, was running out of water. And it was said that it was approaching day zero. But the reality or the fact of the matter is, already by 2015, if not 2012, where the national government declared drought as a national crisis, already by that year, many areas in rural areas, many cities in rural areas had already reached day zero. They had already run out completely out of water. But what kind of imbalances that is that when Cape Town was reaching day zero, there was a lot of attention to that city. And there was less attention in rural areas to the people who had already run out of water. And what happened in Cape Town is that they could mitigate the situation. But in rural areas, they could not mitigate the situation. That is the imbalance that the climate crisis is creating. So if you're thinking about transforming education, talk about the people who, because what drought and water scarcity causes is food insecurity, among many other things. There are people who go to school without food because they cannot mitigate that situation, So that's how the climate crisis links to inclusiveness, the topic of transforming education. Now, how does it affect the youth, the lives of the youth today? The climate impacts go to an extent where it creates more unemployment and it creates more issues of sustainable future, which the youth is always concerned about. But one major thing that is not yet being spoken about a lot is the long-lasting effect of the climate crisis, the trauma. Remember, in 4 months ago, in April this year, there was Cyclone Idai, Cyclone Kenneth, and weeks after there was floodings in my region, South Africa, in KZN, which claimed 71 lives and destroyed properties. You imagine the trauma that it has in our lives, the long-lasting traumas. We think about this, imagine being told that Cyclone Idai is coming your way, that the flooding is coming your way. It's going to kill you, it's going to possibly kill you, or it's going to destroy your property, and it does come and it does do that. Imagine that trauma. Imagine thinking about the future. Imagine thinking about that we don't have the means to mitigate this situation, and it can come again because there is no enough ambition to solve the crisis, the climate crisis. That's the major impact that it has in our lives in reality. How will we address this issue? We need to talk about it more. We need to raise awareness. We need to make sure that we push our government to take climate action to mitigate the situation. Talking about low carbon development, and also talking about creating a resilient community or a resilient society. That is the responsibility that we have as the people of God. God bless you all. Thank you.
Dear friends, we had 4 wonderful word of greetings. We had 5 different statements from all over the world, very profound and deep messages about 5 different topics. Now it's time to get active. We would like to invite all of you, younger voices and older voices, to remain another 40 minutes with us, if it's all right for you. We have foreseen till 20 past. We would like to go on forward to 12:40, if that would fit all of you. This would mean that we invite all of you to join one of the 5 tables that we have around here. You can choose one of the topics. On the right over here is the table about gender justice. That round table over here is about higher education and employment. Over here, the third table about migration and refugee crisis, about climate justice, and about radical extremism. The topics are on top of the table. It would be nice if you could join one of the topics, one of the tables, and questions are on the table, so this would lead a little bit your conversation. And the last question is always about concrete steps. And we would like to invite each group to come back after 25 minutes, so at 12:25, and to have 1 or 2 concrete steps on a poster, which are presenting here briefly in 2 minutes. Welcome to join one of the group. Look that the balances are there. Look a little bit that there are not too many at one table, and that we have groups at each table. Thank you. And intergenerational, all the balances that we do have in this room. Thank you so much. I know we asked you to do the impossible in 25 minutes to find answers and concrete steps to those crucial questions and important issues. Please, we ask you to wrap up in your group work. And we would like to make use out of the mics. Please remain at your tables. And we would like to make use out of the microphones which are next to your tables. And I would like to welcome one group after the other to step forward to a microphone and present the outcome of your group discussions and the concrete steps in a short period of 2 minutes. Which group would like to start? Fantastic. Welcome.
Okay, so we are talking about some gender justice. We have some concrete steps. May I? Okay, so we have two topics about this. First of all, gender justice. Why we're talking about justice? Because it's a word from a biblical word. So it's very important to our Christian life. First of all, how to promote gender justice is to increase dialogue and offer safe space for education involving men, women, and youth for gender justice. Second, we recognize that SDG 5 on gender equality undergirds all the SDGs and provide funding, increasing awareness and skills. Building that without gender equality, all SDG, that means health, education, environment, peace, or everything else is downhill, are unachievable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the group on gender justice. Who would like to go ahead? Climate justice. Welcome.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Our group have a topic about climate justice, and we had a great conversation, and we shared some personal experiences about climate justice, and then we found out some concrete steps about the role of the church in terms of solving problem about climate justice. So first of all, we decided to write it down about including climate justice in theological education curriculum. So that can be a way of encouraging young generation to be aware and to raise awareness and consciousness about climate justice. We also spoke about the responsibility of the churches for the whole creation. So in that way, we have another concrete step, which is to support different activities that promote climate justice. So we really found the concrete actions that church can do in this manner. So we wrote down. Preaching, community. We can also make some community gardens that we can share. And we also mentioned the sharing, recycling, and exchanging. And the last but not the least, we also mentioned about a personal example of being responsible for climate justice. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the group on climate justice. I would like to welcome a third group. The group on migration and refugee crisis.
Thank you. So as a group, we noticed that our churches, how they can be active in welcoming the strangers. Then we noticed that they are different. They are very different depending on their context. Some are very open and active. Some others are not really. And we discussed some concrete steps for churches they can do really in the ground. First, they have to do reflections about the role of the church to accept diversity of how welcoming the strangers. and they can, some of churches they do already, they offer some language courses for migrants and refugees, and we agreed and discussed that they can offer legal advice, or some churches they do already, and facilitate personal encounters and relationships. And it's advisable to do from time to time celebrations together, including all communities or different communities, and creating, connecting, and networking or network is also very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the group on migration. We have two more groups. The group on higher education and employment.
Hello, everybody. I would like to present on behalf of my group. First, we try to identify some common issues that we all experienced from our different contexts. The contexts that we spoke about were South Korea, Thailand, and India. And from my perspective, the Dutch context, but also some global trends we recognize as globe ethics. We see a growing privatization of higher education institutions that also puts pressure on the public institutions. So it means that in most of the countries, a public school often means that you get a lesser quality in education, and that's increasing pressure on both schools actually to keep education affordable. Then we mainly spoke about the pressure on students in learning and assessment in Asian countries, and that we literally, it was described by you, I think, on the making of students into robots, and higher suicide rates even amongst young people, amongst students in India and in Thailand, when it comes to having this pressure of getting a score of 100 out of 100. This relates to actually the title of SDG 4, making sure that education is accessible and that we have equality in education. So these are things that we also in our different contexts, that especially for instance, 40% of the people that live under the poverty lines in India, that higher education is just not an option. And a very strange balance in terms of training people to become academics, whereas there's not many academic positions in the future job field for many students. So a higher need for skill-based employment versus teaching students to become either, you said social studies and political studies were quite, had high amount of students in Thailand, whereas there were not really any jobs available then. So that's quite an issue. Some solutions we came up, and especially the roles for for churches and faith-based organizations in this, is that there is an opportunity for coaching and support. Some institutions that are Catholic-based also have this institutional support from the religious organizations, so they have more manpower and human resources to provide students with coaching and support. The financial balance, it was mentioned that some religious academic institutions that come from a religious background are focused on mission, and therefore right now are offering more opportunities for people with a lower income to pursue studies at their institution. But this is especially related to the first issue that I described, and the public-private balance becoming much more of a difficulty and of a challenge. So having a financial balance, still asking students for somewhat of a fee to become more financially sustainable yourself. Then the opportunity for Christian churches to provide more education for youth. This is already done from, I think, from a traditional perspective, but you recognize that in South Korea this is actually now diminishing, so it should be taken up again. And the ethical formation of students, teachers, but also of the institution itself. How can you make sure that your students are becoming more ethical in their, if they become a future biologist or a doctor, they need to make ethical decisions, and you can't just train them to become good in their job, you need them to make ethical decisions in their job, and that starts with not accepting bribes if you want to give a student a higher rate, or having an ethical code of conduct in your institution, for instance. And then the increasing importance of non-formal education, and how that's more and more playing an important role in primary and in secondary education, but that it should have a critical role in higher education as well, and that we can learn a lot from, for instance, some courses in the US that are becoming more open for the public, and that academic institutions in developing countries can also highlight the importance of non-formal education. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the group on higher education and employments. And the fifth one, on radical extremism.
Okay, we have only 4 members in our groups, and I think we have a quite difficult discussion about what radical extremism is, because it's a little bit biased to define what radical extremism is. But then we come out with some discussion. Number 1 is, how can loving your neighbor reflect to counter radical extremism? First one is not to respond or entertain the same act. So when people do the bomb or violence to us, then we don't have to do the same action or entertain them. So it won't be continued. And then the second one, seek reconciliation as a bridge. Another one is find out or identify the root of case. And the last one is willingness to build dialogue to find out what is the real case is. And then the third one.
The third question is, what concrete step do you propose for the churches and the faith-based organizations to commit in contributing towards transforming education on radical extremism? We think that it's better to start thinking in more global perspective, and it's very good to start this work with our states. So we think that church should influence educational system on particular states and offer the idea of peace. So it's very important to promote the ideas of peace, of love among children, among young generation. So the next step is reinterpret holy books or religious teachings. Sometimes holy books and religion teachings can be the source of radical extremism, of violence, because of incorrect interpretation, because of incorrect understanding of these books. So it's extremely important to promote proper understanding, because, for example, Christianity is the religion of love, of peace, but because a lot of radical extremism organization, even in the framework of Christianity, can promote another ideas which are contradict to Christianity. So, and the third and the last step is organize conferences about how to promote the ideas of peace and how to overcome the violence and the ideas of radical extremism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you to the fifth group on presenting your ideas on radical extremism.
Thank you very much for your suggestions in different topics which we have asked us all to discuss together as collaborating partners and collaborating offices. We would definitely like to take these suggestions in our respective fields and respective working areas, but we would also like to encourage you all to take these steps in your working areas, in your working agendas and curriculum, and also commit towards dedicating our time, resources, and support to the young people, to the younger generations. I think there is no much to wrap up, because we have heard some concrete steps of what we should do, because here today we are here as partner organizations, ecumenical organizations who more or less work in the same field, who more or less work with the young people, with the outside young people who do not belong to our community but belong to our common world. So let us take this dedication and commitment outside and continue our discussions with food now. And I would also ask us all to join us outside in networking and continue more discussions on this respective topics. And thank you very much for participating today, for your patience, for your time, and listening to all the young people, though it was video presentations. And especially we would like to thank Aziz Sadiq for his presence here and giving us his experience in person, so that we could know how do we see in a different context, how do we experience the love of God and also the love of people in this common world. At this time, I would also like to thank the interns of in-house of World Council of Churches who have been continuously supporting us in preparation of this event, the other colleagues of the Lutheran World Federation and World Council of Churches who have been supporting us in preparation and in overall implementation of this program. At the same time, thank you to Benjamin Simon for his stepping in at the very last moment of co-hosting this event together. And thank you very much all. Wish you all a happy and wonderful International Youth Day.